Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO and VC podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, business and investing from the inside out. And today I am welcoming to the show all the way from currently Mumbai in India, does reside in Noosa, which is a fellow Aussie, a fellow Australian, which I always love. And it is so early. It's like 4:30 in the morning in Mumbai. Welcome to the show, Rob Neely.
On.
Thank you. I'm so honored that you're up so early, although you're kind of residing on the two different time zones. So I know what it's like when I'm traveling and you just kind of like, you think it's Australian time and here you are at,
Yeah,
you know.
it's not unusual. Even when I'm home in Australia, I'm up at 4 o'clock because you got to do the US phone calls really early.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and unfortunately, my life is now global phone calls. So I've also got to be up at 8 o'clock at night doing Europe. So, but yeah, in Mumbai at the moment and having a great time over here.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm going to talk to you about that juggling of all the different time zones in a bit, but let's get into it because you have had quite the career, business, VC investor trajectory, and I'm loving the branding here because this is your business, Securely. You're the founder and director of Securely. It's an award-winning fintech building a new payments rail designed to shut fraud down at the source. You're a technical founder turned business leader and investor, and you operate at the intersection of fintech innovation, venture, and systems level problem solving, turning complex industry failures into scalable commercial solutions. I'm going to repeat that again, turning complex industry failures into scalable commercial solutions. And I love that. And we will dive into that because you were just even talking about, I think you mentioned the commercial cemetery of, a lot of founders face themselves in. So we'll come back to that as well. You're known for building from first principles rather than following legacy playbooks, and you've grown multiple ventures and earned recognition, including most recently Best Payment Innovation at the 2025 MPE Awards, Innovator of the Year at the 2024 US FinTech Awards, and FinTech Business Leader of the Year in 2024. I need to hit the clap button. I don't know how to do that on Riverside yet. Watch out, though. Your work reflects a clear through the line question, what the market accepts as fixed, then rebuild it better. And you didn't inherit the payments playbook, you challenged it. And so for me, from what I see is your leadership is the space between vision and disciplined execution, where real innovation comes from seeing what others overlook and having the conviction to build it from a blank canvas. Last but not least, when you booked in for the pod and I asked the question around how have you reshaped business, leadership, investing, you said they're now calling us the next PayPal. And I was like, my eyes lit up. I was like, whoa. And that's because we never followed their playbook. We came in from the outside, saw the $1 trillion scam problem the banks were ignoring and built a new payment rail system. I think I said that right. Yeah. Rail system from a blank canvas that shuts fraud down at the source. And now what insiders said wouldn't work 4 or 5 years ago has an intrinsic valuation of almost $3 billion in USD, all because they couldn't put the pieces together. And I hand it over to you. Hopefully I got all that right.
It's been you did. Thank you, B. Look, it's been a journey, and as you said, I'm in Mumbai, India at the moment, and I'm pretty much on the road 3 weeks out of every 4 internationally at the moment. And it's because what we built in Noosa 4 or 5 years ago when we started now has international significance. And if you had have said to me in 2020, oh, Rob, you'll be speaking with reserve banks around the world and you'll be doing this in 5 or 6 years, I would have said to you, well, you need your head read. That's just not going to happen, because I retired in 2020 as a 60-year-old, and I did not plan on doing world travel again. That was the last thing on my mind. But here I am. And look, I'm very proud, and we are, the team are very proud, because, 2 or 3 years ago when we were talking to bankers in Australia about our orchestration, and I'll explain to the listeners and viewers what it is in a minute, but some of them were just saying, no, it'll never work. It's not of no interest to anyone to do this. And one banker was quite candid and said, Rob, your problem is it's a great orchestration you've come up with. It's brilliant. But the banks don't lose the money in scams. It's their customers. Their
Mm.
customers lose the scam money. And therefore the banks have no interest in trying to fix a problem that they don't have on their balance sheet. So that's sort of changed now.
Mm.
And again, as a proud Australian, you've got to congratulate the e-safety commissioner, Julianne McGrath, over there for pushing this under 16 regulation through to ban children that are under the age of 16 social media, and it's
Yeah.
quite proper because you don't want social media is a big grey area that where none of the profiles are actually validated, or very very few, less than 1%, are validated. So you really have children mixing with who knows who. You just don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, if you want them to mix in day to day, but people have got to have blue cards and the appropriate accreditation to even be near children. But on social media, that's fine. So that's sort of an intro into the problem we're fixing. We've actually gone a step further and solved the scam vector at the source, I guess. And without going to the history of the company, where we are at the moment, we're starting to see governments around the world follow on from the under 16 thing in Australia,
Mm.
many of them. The president of the EU said last week she's going to make sure all 27 EU states adopt it. And now we're starting to see central governments actually commit to requiring their citizens to attach their social media profile to their government profile.
Yeah. Right.
And honestly, and as I said, I'll be in Vietnam tomorrow, and they came out with this 2 months ago. They said by the end of this year, by the end of 2026, we want every citizen's social media profile attached to an accredited identification,
Mm.
and the VNID is the one that in particular there. And Austrade have been great in dragging me across to Vietnam this week, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll just briefly explain to your listeners how we've got 3 patents at the moment, but this particular patent for banking is the one that's of most significance and has tremendous intrinsic value, as you pointed out in
Yeah.
the introduction.
Which is
So,
huge.
say,
I said it's
yeah, huge.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it may even get bigger yet, and I can get to that a bit later too. But look, if we just take it from a standpoint that the large social media companies, or what they're called very large online platforms in technical terms, they don't want to initiate any certification or validation. They claim they do. It's very, very nice. It's motherhood statements, really. It's nothing more than that. But they don't want to. It's not in their interest to validate or certify social media profiles. And it is in their interest to have as many fake ones as they can get. And that's what we've got. So, Elon Musk famously came out 2 or 3 years ago when he bought Twitter. He walked onto the steps of Twitter headquarters the following day and said, I've just paid $33 billion or 44 billion, whatever it was. And I've just found out half of the profiles are fake. And it was, a world statement from Elon. And guess what? 3 years later, he hasn't removed one of them because they make so much money.
Yeah.
And that's the playbook of the large online platforms. So we set about trying to work out how do we stop the scam vector on places like online marketplace, like Facebook Marketplace, etc. And we're all trying to work out, well, if we work with Facebook doing this, or we work with Insta doing that, well, maybe that'll work. And then because we came in from the outside, and I was in animal health up to 2020, so I mean, you can't get two industries further apart.
No.
And because we didn't have our blinkers on, like you do if you spent a career in payments, we challenged what could be done on the payment rail. So a payment rail is whenever you tap your card
Mm.
for a coffee or whatever, goes zoom, 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 zoom all over the world, and that's a payment rail. And then comes back
Right.
within generally a second and says, yes, authorized, right? That's what a payment rail is. So we challenged that, and we challenged the thinking. And what we came up with back in 2023, 2022 was, well, hang on a minute. Why are we worrying about the social media companies trying to validate them? Because they're not going to. What about if we start from the banks? Because your banks have what is in the industry known as KYC, know your customer. Whenever you open up a bank account, you give them a passport, driver's license, your mortgage. They know everything about you, right?
Yeah.
And we said, well, hang on, if we move the parts and tip it on its head and get it bank led, this could possibly work. And so we put some effort into it, and And what it looks like is this: the orchestration that I'm traveling the world at the moment discussing with all sorts of banks is your bank might reach out. Let's say one of your Australian banks that you're with might reach out and say, "Hey, B, we've got a new product. And if you'd like to use it, what we need from you is your social media handle or your URL. It's too early in the morning to get that out properly.
You're doing well, Rob.
URL.
You're doing very well.
If you send that to us and what's on your profile matches what we have as a bank, like your proper name, not a shortened name, not an anglicized name, your proper name, your face for the biometrics, and the other metrics that banks use for KYC. If that matches, B, we will give you a wallet that will be attached to one of your existing transaction accounts, and that wallet will be specifically for use in online marketplaces like Facebook
Got
Marketplace.
it.
So we've covered the identity at the start, so that we know who you are, the banks know who you are, and then they've given you a wallet to then go and buy and sell on online marketplaces. And then the wallet actually acts like an escrow account. So let's say I'm in Noosa and you're in Melbourne and you're buying an electric scooter from me. I would say, well, I've got this new wallet that one of the big banks has given me. And B, what you can do is put the money in that wallet and we can both see it. It sits in between the two accounts, right? It'll say debit $10,000 on one side and credit $10,000 on the other, both pending. So you can't access it. It's pending. So the seller, then I go, okay, well, she's put the money in. I can send the electric scooter. So that gets freighted down to you in Melbourne. We know by freight notes that it's been delivered, and then I would then press a button on the bank app and say, okay, can I have my money released, please, B?
Yeah.
So if the scooter turns up and it's in good order and it's as promised and as advertised, sure, you'll go, yep, release the money. But if it turns up and it's missing a wheel and the handlebar's broken and it wasn't the same as what was shown in the ad, you'll go, no, dispute or don't cancel the payment.
Yes.
But the money stays where it is until such time as the dispute is validated and solved. It's exactly the same as how Airbnb solve their disputes. Put it
Yeah.
that way. So if you're an Airbnb customer and you have a dispute with your the staying in or the apartment, you put a dispute in, and Airbnb, well, first thing they say to you is, well, you two work it out first of all. And if you can't work it out, we'll step in, right? And we'll adjudicate. And that's the dispute resolution as well. So what it does, the orchestration protects both the buyer and the seller. Okay. And it is what we call escrow, but it's also, something that we use every day. It's also called a transaction hold. So when we go to a restaurant at night, you'll come home and you'll see, I've got minus $300 pending for the restaurant. But the restaurant tomorrow morning will see plus $300 pending until it's cleared.
Yeah.
The banks have got this, right? It's available already. They use it, but no one's ever used it in an end-to-end contemplation like that we put together. And the other important part of it is we tether your Facebook picture and profile to the accounts. We know it's you or they know it's you, and you can't change your picture once it's tethered. But we also tether the actual asset to the sale. Well, so it is clear what the asset looked like. The scooter was like this. It was
Yeah, got
sold
it.
like this, right? So it automatically stops the scam, the purchase, online purchase scam vector in its tracks. And of course, that can be also used for services and when people are promising to do this and that, you can put it into escrow, and until they fulfill it, it does not get released. So
What's it called?
it
How do you
creates.
spell that? Sorry. Is it escrow or like, how do you spell that?
Oh, EROW.
Got
So
it. Yeah.
escrow means that it sits in between two
Yeah.
parties. So it's widely used in the US for many, many purchases, not for online payments or purchases, but for real estate. They use it over there for real estate. Also purchase of large or expensive items. So it's well and truly understood, and it's used in other parts of the world for very large commercial transactions. If you're buying $10 million worth of a commodity that's got to come from overseas. It sits in an account until it arrives on shore. So all of these things that we put into the orchestration are available. It just was never put in that particular recipe. So when we realised back in 2023, and we were dealing with the major banks in Australia back then, we were dealing with their payment services company, which are up in Sydney, and we then said to each other in the boardroom, surely there must be a bank around the world that's thought of this. It can't be 5 people from Noosa that have come up with
This
a
idea.
brilliant idea. I mean, that's just naturally what you think, right? You go, couldn't be us. Anyway, so we looked everywhere. We literally looked everywhere from every country in the world, and we couldn't find the orchestration anywhere or the solution. And then we went, crikey, if that's right and there's no bank using it, maybe we should actually take a leap of faith as a startup and put a patent around this.
Yeah.
And we did. And we used a Melbourne company down there in Camberwell that are our patent lawyers. Shout out to Murray Trento.
I know
But they've been
well.
really, really helpful. Yeah. So we've now got 3 patents, but certainly the payments one is the one that all of the banks and central governments around the world are interested in, because it involves both payment and identification all in one orchestration, and it can be easily achieved. And that's, I've spent the last 5 days here in Mumbai, and all I'm doing is going from bank to bank to the Reserve Bank of India and on and on it goes. So, and once they get it, and once they can see it in their eyes, when they go, this is brilliant. This really makes a lot of sense. But I must say, a lot of payments people still to this very day, and I had a meeting last week with some risk people at a large bank here, and some of them still want to doubt it. They're still looking for holes, and they go round and around, and what about this and what about that? And then they just give up and go, you know what it is? It's a great solution.
Well, it is,
So
because
I'll just give
sorry,
you some background. Go on. Well, I'll give you some background as to the size of this problem for your listeners. So it is said that it's about $1 trillion a year at the moment globally is being lost to scams originating from social media platforms. I can say to you that a large bank in Australia, and I won't mention their name, but a large bank in Australia is spending $900 million a year on scam and fraud prevention and mitigation. And that bank, and it's no secret because their CEO came out and said it, there's 4,000 people in their scam and fraud department.
it's crazy,
Right?
isn't it?
And over 80% of their scams are coming from social media.
Yeah.
Whether it's financial, scams where they try and trick money out of you in fake investments, or whether it's just a sale of a product. So the issue is massive. It is so large, and we need, and the security orchestration solves that. But we never identified ourselves as an identity company up until recently, and we realised that the identity portion of it is actually is as important as the payment portion. And that's, some of the people in the US, and that's why we've won awards in both Europe and Australia, because people are saying, it's so simple when you look at it, but why didn't anyone think of it?
Yeah, it's always the way though.
But yeah, but it's a bit like Uber. Why didn't someone think of Uber before Uber? And we all use it. I mean, it's ubiquitous and universal. So that's that pattern. And what we've done, we also lodged another patent B, which will be of interest, and that's for dating sites. Right? So it's the same thing. It's know your customer, and it's quite literally the dating site would do a KYC inquiry with the customer's bank to make sure they are who they say they are, because dating sites are, they're there's all sorts of issues that occur on dating sites, from catfishing to sexual predation to the whole. They're a hotbed of nastiness, to be honest. And none of the dating sites around the world have any KYC. All they do is liveness checks. You can use any name you want, and they just do a liveness check. Oh yeah, that's definitely Rob. Yes, the biometrics are saying it's Rob. So we've put that together, and I'll give you an exclusive, B. We are going to launch the first dating site probably late in June, and we're not a dating site company, I've got to tell you at the outset, but we do proof of concept and we do MVP. So, we don't just say this theoretically could occur. We build it out, right, to prove to everyone that can be. So we will be launching a dating site in Australia called findahusband.com in June. If you and yeah, and there's a story behind that too, and it's a cool story. But that'll be launching in June, and to actually become a member of it, the very first thing you do in registration is you go to your bank, you pick which bank you're using. So all the 4 banks are up there, right? You pick which one you are. It takes you to the bank's app, and then the bank's app will say to you, "Hey, B, do you want to give all this information to find a husband?" And you'll go, "Yes, I do." And then that information comes back electronically to the dating site. So from there on, what that means in real terms is, and it's made clear to people, if you violate the terms and conditions of the dating site, if you do something that is illegal in any sense,
Mm,
we will give the police all of your information.
yeah.
End of story. So don't do it.
Do it. Yeah.
Before you think about it, don't do it, because
Do
they'll
it.
be on your doorstep.
Yeah.
Whereas at the moment, it can quite often, with the fake profiles that are on those sites, it can take months
Mm,
for the police to track a person down to an address, right?
yeah.
So, again, this is another Australian technology. It's a derivation of our banking permit patent, obviously, but that we're proving the world right now, in a couple of months' time, we'll be proving to the world that this can occur. And we would imagine that all of the dating companies around the world will pick this up, because they'll be forced to pick it up, just like the under 16 thing. And that's a good thing. That stops
Yeah,
the
100%.
terrible
Oh my
stuff.
God.
Yeah.
So what's your third
Sorry, I
paper?
can talk, B.
No, I
I
love
can
it.
I
I
can
do.
yak.
I'm writing all these questions down and I'm like looking at the time going, this is
Go.
incredible. Like, I love it. At 4:30 or just a bit later than 4:30 now, like here you are, like you're on fire, which I love. What's your third patent? So you've got the
The
S.
third patent, is one that we bought. So about 2 years ago, or about a year ago, I realized that, you're building a business and you've got to make sure that you've got, anything can happen, right? The world changes so quickly insofar as AI, agentic AI and so forth. Agentic AI wasn't really even known 2 years ago, right? And yet now agentic AI is running scams around the world for criminal organizations. So I thought to myself, well, I don't really want to be a one-trick pony. We've got to sort of spread some of the risk in the business. And I came across another Australian inventor who had built a data sovereignty patent, and it's brilliant what he's done. Operates the same as a crypto wallet. You know how a crypto wallet has one key, right? And if you lose the key, you can't get access to the crypto, right? And that's great. So there's no back end access. When you put your photos in an iPhone or any phone, or you put them into Microsoft on your computer, they go into something that's called a canister, right? And the canister is spun up, and I'll use this as an example. It's spun up, and they pop stuff in there, everything that's yours. So all your photos will sit in there, right? Other information will sit in there. But the problem with this is the canister, the online platform can get in through the back end. So what this inventor, David, came up with was, well, we'll spin up canisters that you own, right? And you can take them, they're cloud agnostic. You can move them from US to wherever you want, right? And you hold the key.
Yeah.
And I went, that's just brilliant. And this is a granted patent. It was granted into the United States last year and some other countries as well. And I went, this is just brilliant what this guy's come up with, and an Australian inventor. And God bless you, David. He's done a great job. And so what the application, of course, the people that are interested in that are the very, very large data companies like AWS, right? And Google, because they can sell it so they can sell it person by person,
Yeah.
and then, charge a subscription fee each month, obviously. So that's what we're doing there. Moreover, the natural extension of that canister is for small and medium enterprises. So we hear every day that there's been a data breach with some company.
Yes.
If it's not Optus, it's someone else, right? So even your local dental surgery might have 3,000 customers, and they've got all their information on their computer. And it's largely, and I say this, it's largely unprotected. And I say it because there are 240 data breaches in Australia every single day,
Wow. 240.
right?
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge. Well, and if the world figures are even more extraordinary, but 240 every single day. So, we only hear about the big ones when Optus gets done, or, there's breaches at Qantas or wherever else, right? Whatever else, big companies, right? But, when you think about it, a dentist, the same dentist could lock that canister on a Friday night or lock it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and the hackers can't get into it. It's
Yeah.
completely locked, right? So that's the third pattern, and that has enormous applicability around the world, and it solves a massive data problem. So what I wanted to do was build some structure around securely, so even if one of our patents failed, they still had a fallback, and it wouldn't waste 5 years or 6 years of work.
Yeah, it's huge. Oh my gosh. What a
The great thing is, in the paper, this over here in Mumbai on Saturday morning, and this was astounding for us. The Reserve Bank of India came out and said, because of the scams that are occurring, we are going to put a delayed payment. So that in India, you have a thing called UPI, a Universal Payment Interface, and every person with a phone has their own QR code, right? And if I want to pay you something, all I do is literally hover my phone over your phone, and it transfers the money between the
yeah.
QR codes, right? It's a sensational. It's world leading what they do here. And the Reserve Bank came out in the paper, and no one knew it was coming. They've come out and said, we're going to be stopping some payments and holding them so people have a chance to actually retract them. A lot of people will make a payment, like your mum might make a payment, or my mum might make a payment, and then go, I just better check with B about this. Maybe I'm scammed. But up until now, it's, the payment, once it's gone, it's gone. You can't get it
Yeah.
back. It's just gone into the ether. So to read the Reserve Bank are doing this is validation for us. And, there's been a lot of discussion on LinkedIn and so forth over the weekend about it. So we're very, very pleased. And I'll give you some context. And if I can, I don't want to bogo. I'm sure you got questions. There was also a report last week. This is where scams are going. Okay. We've had scams up until 2026, and now it's changing. And I've been warning everyone of this for about a year and a half, 2 years. So Interpol, or the European Federal Police Force, raided a SIM farm last week or 2 weeks ago in Europe. Now, SIM farm is what it is. It's the SIM
Mm.
in your phone, right? But what they do is they put them into great big machines and industrialize the SIM. The SIM farm had 7 people working there, right? Normally in the scam centers, there'd be 7,000, right? Because
Yeah.
they're all picking up phones. They had 7 people working there, and they arrested those people. There were 1,600 SIMs going flat out, like not non-stop. But here's the worrying part. The 1,600 SIMs were attached to AI, and they had 49 million fake
Wow.
profiles, right?
Yeah.
49 million with 7 people running it. Scam farms in the countries that they're in, they're generally in Cambodia and places like that, and also Dubai. They're also there. They're building 8-story buildings full of thousands of people, and they were relying on them making phone calls one after the other. So what we're seeing with agentic AI is agents, literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one actually makes the phone call. So,
Yeah.
and you can't tell the difference. You go, hello, it's so-and-so from this company, and you really can't tell what you're talking to artificial intelligence. So that's the problem. We're going to look back in history in 2026 and say that was the time that scams were industrialized. I mean, that SIM farm can be doing millions of phone calls a day. It's
Scary,
just
isn't it?
frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we were. That's where we were.
Gosh, wow. Like, oh my gosh, so many questions. I'm going to have to tailor
Go,
my
no, go.
questions accordingly. I'm going to start with animal health to then retiring at 60, and then 6 years later, here you are. How, like, securely, and I also want to just call out securely. It's such a great name because you just talked about your 3 patents, and they're interconnected, but they're vastly different. They're vastly different in a way. So securely for me feels like you are securing the whole entire world from scams. Essentially, like it does feel
Yeah.
like that because you're able to go between various different categories, if you like. It's almost like you're taking on these online scammers, and like they take they're one step ahead and you're one step ahead, and it's just this continuous, and then you're finding these continuous holes. So I love that. There is no playbook. You are creating the playbook, because if you stuck with the
Mhm.
traditional playbook, you would be we would be like further behind because the traditional playbook is unable to keep up with what is currently happening. So
Absolutely.
tell us just quickly, animal health too, then, like what made you like were you said you were sitting around a boardroom table. I'm conscious of time,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah,
very
no, that's okay. My life has been, I started as I didn't know what an entrepreneur was then, but I started as a 15-year-old. My first seed round was $30 from mum and dad back in 1975, right? And I started the business when I was still at school. And 3 years later, when I went to university, I shut the business down. But it was enough. I made enough money to buy my first house back in the
mm,
70s, right? And houses were not just in context; they weren't expensive back in the 70s, right? My life has been that, just going from one idea to the next, to the next, to the next, and not all of them work. But I've had some spectacular failures. Don't worry about that. And one in particular was buying a newspaper, and I should never have bought that. But I bought it for a reason. It was way back when mobile phones were just coming into place, and text messages, more importantly. And my view was, if I bought this newspaper, I could send all of the readers texts, and then, what we know as a subscription service today. That was what I was planning on doing. And I went to put a patent around it in Collins Street, in Melbourne, with a patent lawyer, and he didn't get it. He just didn't. He couldn't comprehend what I was talking about. And maybe because I was younger, I was probably in my mid-30s, I guess. I didn't explain it well to him, but that was enormous, and that was in
mm,
gambling. So imagine having that gambling pattern, you know, the value of that all the way through. But that's really was my first $1 billion idea. I didn't know it was a $1 billion idea,
yeah,
but it
right.
was my first. So my life has been idea to the next, to the next, and animal health was one of those as well. I I retired at about, I don't know, 40, I think, back to our horse farm in the Yarra Valley, and we had a lot of horses, so we had a lot of feeding, and I came up with, horses have a very simple gut. They're monogastric, right? And so the food goes in one and comes out the other quite quickly, and you've got to get the best utilization of that food as it goes through. So without boring everyone, I came up with an idea, and we started making it for our own horses, and then people started asking us, why are your horses so fat and shiny? And fat and shiny is good for equestrian horses, right? It's the
Yeah,
opposite for race horses.
yeah, totally.
Why are they so fat and shiny? And then people started coming to our farm in Yarra Glen and buying it from us. And before we knew it, my wife was, she was sewing bags up. I was mixing them and selling. And, long story short, within 3 years, we were in 3,000 stores around Australia. And it was a massive business with, 17 staff on the production floor and B double trucks coming and going nonstop. It was insane. But out of that, I realized that all human medicine is at some point in its trial period trialed on animals before it gets to humans,
Yeah.
right? And the human medicine companies, or the pharmaceutical companies, or the biotechs, they just grab the animal results and then put them on a shelf to gather dust,
Mm,
right? And so I hooked up with a guy in Melbourne that had a biotech company down there with some really novel stuff. And I said, why can't I use what you've already, because they've spent millions on the animal testing,
yeah.
right? So it means that they know it's safe. You can give it to an animal, the animal's going to be safe. It's backed by science. So he said, yeah, well, I don't want it. And I bought it from him for pennies in the dollar, so to speak, to use the American term. And then I realized that this wasn't just this one biotech company. There were biotech companies all around the world with these animal tests or animal trials that they'd run, and they weren't using them. So I then set out, because the horsefare company was going crazy. We were
Mm.
selling it in South Africa and selling it all over the place. I then set out to put together all of this science and this ready and available technology. And then we got dragged across to Kansas City in the United States, and we set up our head office there. Kansas City is the animal health capital of the world, right? And Kansas City is right in the middle of the US. It's a great city, tiny city, but a great city. So anyway, we sold all of we picked up about 35 technologies, had offices in Hungary, New Zealand, London, New York, all over the place. We were still small, we weren't large. Um, then we sold all of that in 2017, and we still had the horse feed manufacturing facilities in Melbourne and dotted around places. And so we sold all of that in 2020 when I retired, and the idea was retire and go sailing and just
Do all
relax.
the fun stuff.
With Yeah, so but I had one more idea in my head, even at 60. And the idea was to solve the problem between tradies and their customers. So tradies rip off their customers and customers rip off tradies, right? So a tradie, does a job and the customer says, "Oh, I don't want to give you the $10,000. I'll give you 7,000." So, and my concern was that, if you rip off a tradie, you're taking food out of their children's
Mm.
mouths, right?
Mm.
And in some cases, the customers don't pay them at all. I mean, we see it
No.
all the time on social media, right? And of course, the other way around, tradies also take money from customers and then don't do the job. They
Yeah.
just nick off. And my idea was, well, why hasn't someone built an app like Airbnb? Because Airbnb just effectively holds the money in the middle, right? Between the host and the guest.
Mm.
And it's released at a certain point once the contract's fulfilled. And so I'm wandering around saying, well, why can't we just build an app like Airbnb to fix this tradie problem? So we did, right? But it was a lot harder than I ever anticipated. And of course, I wasn't in financial services, but I put some great people around me, grey-haired people like me, up in Noosa in the Sunshine Coast and in Brisbane, people that, were happy to put some sweat equity into the company. And we fortunately were able to get the name securely, so that's where we started. And we got that up and running. And then this was 2020. So this was COVID. And of course, this was the start of the craziness of online purchases, because
Mm.
everyone was stuck in Melbourne and Sydney. They weren't allowed out of their houses
God,
and
I
they
look
were
at that.
going crazy. Online sales went nuts, right? So we noticed that some of the tradies' wives were using our app to buy stuff on this thing called Facebook Marketplace. And back then, Facebook Marketplace was only small. It was in 19 countries around the world. It was
Yeah.
tiny. But COVID spun it up, went, just nuts. So we went, well, our app's not built for that. So then we built another one specifically, and it was called Securely for Cars. It was, the imagery was, I look back on it now and just go, my God, this is us now, right? And we've got Securely Pay coming as well, but the imagery was so bad. But anyway,
It's always the way.
we built that. Yeah, we built that, and UX wasn't our forte, I can assure you. Then one of the large payment companies in Australia that's owned by the big four banks saw what we were doing and reached out and said, "Hey, this is really cool. It's interesting what you're doing. Can you come and meet us?" And that was the start. They were the pivot points, or what I call the sliding doors. I mean, as a founder and an entrepreneur, you have opportunities put to you all the time. If not daily, if not weekly, there's an opportunity comes up. Can I liaise with this person? Can I work with that company? And not all the opportunities are great. So I say it's the same as the Gwyneth Paltrow movie where she went in one
Yeah, I
door and it
love.
changed her life, right? And then she went in the other door, and this is her other life that occurred because she decided to go in a particular door. So that's the life of an entrepreneur, and that's how Securely started. And I think one of our superpowers, if any founders are listening to me or have bothered to listen this far,
It's a good start.
is is we have from the start had a board meeting every single week, every single Saturday morning. We have a board meeting, right? And what that has allowed us to do in this time of high speed change in the world is that as we have had opportunities put forward in front of us, we've been able to make a decision within days, and
Mm.
then actually execute on that decision.
Yeah.
And not all of them are great. Not all of them are great, and then you re-execute again. But if you're meeting monthly, it's
Too slow.
ridiculous.
I know. I have this constant conversation with businesses that I advise for, etc. And I'm just always like, "Where's your have you? Are you having your strategy meetings, your weekly strategy meetings?" And they all look at me sometimes and they're like, "Oh no, we've got to get to it." I'm like, "It has to be your number one priority. Like it just has to be because
Absolutely.
otherwise everything else just gets in the way. You need to always be coming back up here, looking. I always say, look above to then drop back down." And it's a dance between above, like it's not, you can't just sit up here and you can't just sit down here. And I just think that I can't iterate, to the audience, to the listeners, how important it is to have those weekly
You've got to,
strategic
honestly,
meetings. Yeah.
the speed of change, with artificial intelligence and large language models that are available, you know, you, when I started in business, if you wanted to contact someone, you had to get it typed out, put it in an envelope, post it, and then you'd hear back from them in 2 weeks. Now you can hear back from someone in 2 minutes,
I know.
right, or less, right? So that's how it's changed in the last 50 years. But, I was giving a talk in Berlin 2 weeks ago, and I asked the audience, I like when I'm talking, I don't want to just be heard. I want to, have to
Interact.
and fro. Yeah, that's the Australian in me, I guess. And of
Same.
course, the Germans are a little bit, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
But I actually asked, I said, how many of your companies present or that you're here for, how many are using AI on a daily basis? And I was absolutely astonished. Only about 25% of the audience put their hands up.
Wow.
And
Really?
it was like, yeah, are you serious? And I'll give you another example. And I won't mention the bank's name, but I was sitting down with a bank in Australia with some bank staff in Australia and at a middle level management. And I said to them, well, has the bank run you through large language model courses? And they went, no. And it's like, you got to, the banks need to understand the scammers are all using this stuff,
Yeah,
right?
totally. I mean, it's so funny. I went through my spam the other day, my spam mail. I don't know why. And I saw some of the craziest threatening spamming emails I've seen in a long time. And it was so aggressive. And it was basically just going this, and this. And if you need to pay this immediately. And I thought to myself, some people would just automatically go into fear and go, I've got to pay this because they were threatening me with everything was going to be shut down. And I'm just like, luckily it was in my, I was just like, it's just wild what is going on. It's like the wild, wild
Yeah,
west. It's
and
worse
and
than the wild, wild
they prey on people, and some of the hackers will shut you down. So you need to be careful. You need to know what you're doing.
mm,
If you have it's not just personal online presence. If you're a business, and let's face it, every business is connected online in some way. It's not like the old days of ISDN, whether you're either on the internet or you weren't. Businesses are on 24 hours a day. That
mm.
means, the large crime syndicates can back end and get in there. And talking about crime syndicates, we're partnered with a very large financial institution in New York. I'm not going to say the name, but I was there recently and having our sort of quarterly meeting over there. And they said, "Oh, Rob, before you leave and go to the airport, we want to tell you that we've intercepted some intelligence that the large Colombian and Mexican drug cartels are now setting up scam centers, agentic AI scam centers, right? And so no humans involved. They don't even need to traffic people into them. They're just setting up these centers as if they're not making enough money out of. They have to now go into scams." And it's just it's it's crazy, and of course they've got the money for the best equipment. So when I said earlier, it's now industrial
Yeah.
size what's going to occur. It's just astonishing. And if you don't have great hardware set up on your computers software set up on your computers to make sure that can't be accessed, then you should go out and buy some today. It's pretty important. Protect everything you got. Look,
You scared me
and
a
I
little
might
bit.
just
I
say
think
this.
I need to because here I am handing everything over to Claude going, make it all, go in looking, go into my workspace, etc. And there's no,
Yeah, so that's
like,
a great question,
yeah,
and this is all got to be addressed. And as we know, we're even with the Australian government saying to the large platforms, "We want you to do this," and they just give them the finger and say, "Well, we're not going to do it. What are you going to do
yeah,
about it?" And so again, back to what the Aussie government through the Office of E-Safety Commission are doing. They need to have a lot of applause around what they've actually set out to do, because they're world leading. So it's great, and you need to pay attention. And the other thing is that I think it's important, probably for your listeners, to know where banking is going. Banking is
I was going
going
to ask you
to
that.
be run. It's going to be run by Apple, Google. I'm not sure if you've got kids or not, but
I don't have
if someone's got a 5-year-old now that's listening, and by the time they get to 15 or 18, when they're setting up what would normally be setting up a bank account, they'll just think they're banking with Apple. They won't even know the name banks, and
yeah,
that's where this is all going, right? So, and that's Securely has done. Even though we're a scale up, we're only in a Series B at the moment. And it's pretty great. We've got intrinsic values in the billions. That's all great, but you still got to execute, right? You can have. It's like buying a mine. I
yeah,
went and bought this mine, and it's got all this gold in it. Well, that's great, but you've got to get it out of the ground. Then that's if
100%.
people don't know what the intrinsic value is, that's what it means. So all of those large companies are going to take over the banking face for everyone. So everyone in 10 years time will just be going, oh no, I did this on my Apple account, because they'll have accounts for you for saving.
Mm,
Revolut's already doing it, right? So
mm,
this is occurring. And if you're not sure or don't believe what I'm saying, have a look at how many patents Google have got in the payment space. It's
mm,
thousands,
mm.
right? So they're covering that area. And, I just I'm so happy that we decided to put patents are very expensive, right?
Yeah,
They're
totally.
incredibly expensive.
And they take years,
But we
can take
took
years,
the
can't
leap.
they?
Sorry, yeah,
They can take years to come through, can't they, as well?
yes, up to 7 years, yeah. So, but you've got to when you lodge it, the first $10,000 it's just the start. It's like buying a horse for your kids. You buy the horse, that's just the start of the journey for the cost.
Mm,
Then you buy
mm,
the float, and then,
mm,
a bigger car, and then your feet, it's just the start. It really, really is. So, we were very lucky that we made the decision to do that. But, we're at the point now where we're paying a lot of money every month just to prosecute in different countries around the world. And there's up to 150 or so patent countries that you can lodge in.
mm,
So we're at the point we've been very fortunate again that the original patent was novel. We had it examined by the patent office about a year ago, and they came back and said, "Here's some prior art that we think affects your patent." We looked at it all, went back to them and said, even if you put all of that prior art together, it doesn't match the patent. And to our utter amazement, they came back about 2 weeks later and said, "We agree. We're removing any adverse findings. You've
mm.
got a clear runway for the patent." So it
Amazing.
still astonishes me that this group of people from Noosa heads in Australia
Incredible. I
came
love
up with a
stories.
patent that's got global applicability. It's
Yeah,
it's
it's
just mind
incredible.
blowing,
Well,
right?
your brand's the name
But it's
says it
great.
all. As far as I'm concerned, it securely says you're securing the world. Like, you're taking on
Yeah,
the big behemoths, the big giants. I absolutely love it. Tell me one thing. So you were retiring at 60. 6 years later, here you are. You said you travel 3 out of 4 weeks, ongoing. How do you do it? Like, how do you,
yeah.
you retired
That's
at
a great
40,
question.
said you retired at 40, 20 years on, you're a person that is continuously, you're an innovator, you're an entrepreneur, you've constantly got ideas, you're up at 4:30 in the morning. I've spoken to quite a few people around, I guess the question around, do you retire or don't you retire, or do you refire versus retire? I have a
Yeah.
conversation with my mum quite often around, actually, I saw in the news last night around, it's getting harder to retire from a financial
Mm.
perspective. It was interesting, the women piece around that also. How do you, and even, recently my financial advisor said to me, down the track retiring, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I will fully retire. Although I'm one of those people that always has all these ideas, right, myself, and I'll always be involved in something. And then he made the point, but you still need to enjoy, life and things like that. And I went, yeah, I do. How do you sustain it? One, how do you sustain this travel, the time differences, all of that, and keeping yourself, with all your fresh perspectives? And then what's your view
Yeah.
on retirement as such? Because I hear this all the time. I've retired and then I'm back in it again. I didn't plan to be back on in it. Yeah.
Yeah, look, and great question. This was discussed. We were out at a resort yesterday with some people hosted me outside of Mumbai, and it was brought up because I'm 66 in a month's time, and I don't enjoy the travel. I can absolutely assure you. I love meeting people. I love talking about our innovation and an Aussie innovation. The fact is, we are in a Series B roadshow at the moment, and
Yeah.
we've got a $125 million valuation around the company, which is at a 90% discount to the intrinsic value, but that's appropriate. We've got good advisors. We have KPMG advising, we have EY advising, so that's the number that we've agreed on, and we're raising about 44 to 45 million US dollars for a reason, and I'll get to that. But the retirement side is also part of the Series B. So what we're looking for right now is we're looking for strategic partners in the fintech or data world that can add value. It's no use for us just taking money from an IPO and then applying it. We actually need people that are in the industry to execute this properly. Our ideal partner would be financial sector, banking sector, data, large data, that have their existing C-suites there,
Uh-huh.
right? And they can drag 4 or 5 people across from their existing businesses in banking to head up the securely play. So that's number one. That's how I'm retiring. But even yesterday, the people I was discussing with, they said, "Oh, Rob, you can put another year in." But I've heard that for 5 or 6 years now, and it's getting a pretty ordinary story. I want to move back to the board position. There's no doubt about that. I can provide just as much value at a board position as I can being on the ground and doing these long road trips. So that that's my plan to get that done. But we're having a lot of conversations, and I don't mind where the company ends or sits, whether it's in New York or in the City of London or Mumbai for that matter. Mumbai's a major financial centre now as well. Singapore. I'm agnostic as to where it sits, but we need the right team,
Yeah.
and that's important.
100%. Yeah.
So our family still owns a very, very large slice of this company. We haven't really gone out apart from our Series A, which was fundamentally a family and friends Series A. We haven't really gone out and taken in an outside partner. So we've got a position where even at 25 million US, once it's post money, that'll be 160 something, $250 million in Australian terms. So we have a large investment in the company. So the application of those funds is not just for the C-suite. That's number one. That'll be my very first week of, right, who are we picking and who are we putting in to replace me, right? Because let's face it, we've got to have a 40-year-old guy or girl run the company that can cope with this travel. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
But what's come out of the last 12 months, we put together Securely Corp in the US. We put together Securely Limited in London, and yes, the names were available. Astonishingly, still. So we've got Securely Limited in London. Can you believe that someone hasn't got that already? But so we put that together. Where we're going with it is that, and this goes back to my discussion about banking on platforms. We realise that once the patent goes through, we have control of that vertical, of the peer-to-peer payment vertical, from social media identities for the next until 2042. That is our space.
Yeah.
And if we can partner with the right silverback gorilla, like we need a massive bank or a massive data player that can protect us and protect the patent, because otherwise the big companies just treat smaller
Yeah.
companies with total disdain, and they'll just use it because they know you can't fight them out of it. So we need a silverback gorilla. That's the other part of it. But we're going to build what will be called Securely Pay. Because we'll own that vertical,
Yeah.
we will put together all countries that we're licensing in 2 or 3 years' time. This is a 28, 29 horizon sort of thing. And we'll be sitting along. So Securely Pay in 2 or 3 years' time, sing along GPay, Apple Pay, Stripe,
Wow.
and all those third-party
Amazing.
players.
We'll have
But
to replay this in a few
specifically,
years' time, Rob.
yeah, well, I hope so. But I really do hope so. But specifically, there's the first images of Securely Pay there.
You're very
With,
cool.
I shouldn't put this all my names and numbers up there.
I can
Anyway,
cut it.
no, it's fine. Doesn't matter. People reach out all the time,
Oh my
so
God, Rob.
I've got AI on my phone to vet who's ringing me. So,
I love
but yeah, so that's what we're planning on doing. That's what we're planning on creating. So we need some really smart fintech people and banking
Yeah.
people involved with the company. So the series, the roadshow, is also looking at what the partner can add. I mean, I've got money. I had dinner with the guy on Friday night, and he says, "I'll give you 10 million. I'll send the money over." And I said, "Well, that's very kind of you, but I appreciate it. Maybe a bit later on, because you're not really bringing me any value. If you can go and partner up with one of the large financial institutions, that'd be great." And so that's what he's doing now. He's got some contacts, so he's going to go and do
Incredible.
that. But yeah, so that's what we're after. I mean, it's exciting, but the money means very little to me, to be honest. What means a lot to me is that we're building something to stop people being scammed, because um, you know, people lose their entire life savings. They
Yeah,
can
no,
be six, they can be my age, and I've heard it time and time again, and it's not new, but 60, 70, 80-year-old people are tricked into losing everything, and they are then destitute, and
yeah.
that's you know
I love that
that
you rounded back to the bit. it's around purpose and impact, really. It's the impact you're making on
Yeah,
the
which is
world.
where we started, right? To
Yeah.
fix the tradie problem, the issue between tradies and their customers. And so
Oh,
we haven't, that's not lost on us, but it's horrible when I hear these stories. And I do, I speak to people bring us and say, what can I do? I'm tricked by this person that, love thing,
oh,
and she was so beautiful. And we then go and track some of these people down, and they pretend they're wonderful European, either males or females, and then you find out they're living in Burbank, California, and they've
yeah.
got two kids. The only this because we can track people down when we have to, right?
Oh my
And it's
god. I
like,
wonder if
no,
you
look,
tracked
here's
me before you spoke to me. Huh, too funny.
no, no, we haven't got, we didn't know.
Rob, I am going to have to end our conversation. It's been, gosh, I feel like I could talk to you all day, and the listeners this is just been such an educational as well, just in on how important it is from a securely perspective. Like I'll use your brand as well, and in terms of, I love this whole, social media and your social media and the banks and the connective tissue there as well, in terms of you have to have it all interconnected now to be able to purchase things online. I'm saying that broadly. I think it's brilliant. And I think it's the same with dating, because you hear so many bad dating stories. And like you say, it's just, you're pretty much you're on a mission to protect the world. So thank you so much. If I can ask one final question with just 2 minutes to go, I'm going to ask you from a founder perspective, what would be one piece of advice or words of wisdom you would give any founder out there right now who, listening to your story, who knew they had something and just weren't sure whether to continue to pursue it or not? What would be one piece of advice you would give them right now, to anyone listening to the show?
I know the answer to the question. Answer is the cheap, the always get the best advice.
Mm,
Okay, if I had have been able to get this through to that patent attorney back in the 90s about my gambling pattern,
yeah.
he couldn't get it, so I lost the opportunity. So the worst advice you can get is the cheapest advice. So don't go to someone that doesn't play in the area. And as an example for your listeners, at the outset, I knew back in 2020 that the idea had merit, that it was probably going to be something of substance only in Australia. We were never looking outside of Australia. It was just to
Mm,
fix the tradie problem in Australia.
mm,
But immediately we took on Ernst & Young to be our advisors. Now, they're not cheap, and we would have been their smaller company by a long shot. I mean, we would have
yeah.
been a minnow in the size, but they, I told them the story. I told them what I wanted to do, and they came on board. God bless them. They're still with us right now. So use the best advice, because the cheapest advice could kill your company.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
yeah, that's the one takeaway I'd give. But and I mentor quite a few younger founders these days where I've got time to do it, and they don't know what they don't know,
No, I
and
agree.
we need portals available for founders so that they can go on there and, I know you do some of this work yourself, right? But I was sitting with the Queensland government last week, and they were saying, what can we do? What can we do? And I said, well, grants are only good for giving someone money. They don't actually provide the the accumulated intelligence that is needed, or the business acumen
Yeah, I
for
agree.
founders. So why don't you try and put that together for founders in Queensland? And that's what they're setting about to do now.
Love it. You've given me another idea as well. Rob, how do we find out more about Securely? How do we find out more about you?
Sure, you can all hit me up anytime you like on LinkedIn. That occurs all the time. I'm pretty active. I do video logs, and I do thought pieces around the world wherever I am. So please, by all means, just hit me up there. And of course, go to securely.group, and you can find out all about the company and the various technologies. And of course, look out for Find a Husband. Find a Husband's going to be the world
Agree.
leading, right? World leading. It's going to show the world that we can attach identity to real bank accounts, and then you'll know who you're going to. And I'll give you just really quickly, one of the really cool things that we've got with Find a Husband, we're going to have unique QR codes with your face embedded in the QR code. So when you turn up on the date, right, you'll go, here's my QR code, let's swap that. But your face is embedded, so you cannot be anyone else,
I love it.
right?
Very cool.
Yeah,
Amazing.
sorry, I take too much of your time.
No, you're
I
great,
can
Rob.
talk.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor
Pleasure.
speaking to you. And yeah, thank you for
Thank
waking
you,
up
B.
as early as you did. And look out,
No worries.
everybody. I can't wait to, my gosh, securely pay, securely find a husband, everything. You've got it going on. And I just love your overarching mission and the impact you're here to make, and the purpose around it as well is to protect people's security, essentially, which is just so important in the world we're in right now. So, Rob, on that note, let you have a nice day,
Namaste.
nice early morning, and namaste. Yes, I'm a big namaste. So, thank you so much, Rob. Thank you.